The Life and Sad Ending of Tennessee Ernie Ford. Tennessee Ernie Ford, born Ernest Jennings Ford, was born on February 13, 1919, in Bristol, Tennessee, to Maud and Clarence Toms Ford. He had an older brother named Stanley H. Ford. He spent a lot of his time in his early years listening to country or Western musicians, in person or on the radio. Ford began wandering around Bristol in his high school years, taking in interest in radio and beginning his radio career as an announcer at WOPI-AM in 1937, being paid $10 a week. In 1938, the young bass baritone left the station and went to study classical music at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music in Ohio. He returned for the announcing job in 1939 and did it from 1939 to 1941 in stations from Atlanta to Knoxville. A first lieutenant, he served at the United States Army Air Corps in World War II as a bombarder on a B-29 Superfortress flying mission over Japan. He was also a bombing instructor at George Air Force Base in Victoriaville, California. After the war, Ford worked at radio stations in San Bernardino and Pasadena, California. At KFXM in San Bernardino, Ford was hired as a radio announcer. He was assigned to host an early morning country music disc jockey program, Bar Nothin' Ranch Time. To differentiate himself, he created the personality of Tennessee Ernie, a wild, madcap, exaggerated hillbilly. He became popular in the area and was soon hired by Pasadena's KXLA radio. He also did musical tours. The Mayfield brothers of West Texas, including Smokey Mayfield, Thomas Ed Mayfield, and Herbert Mayfield, were among Ford's warm-up bands, having played for him in concerts in Amarillo and Lubbock during the late 1940s. At KXLA, Ford continued doing the same show and also joined the cast of the Cliffstones' popular live KXLA country show, Dinner Bell Roundup, as a vocalist, while still doing the early morning broadcasts. Cliffy Stone, a part-time talent scout for Capitol Records, brought him to the attention of the label. In 1949, while still doing his morning show, he signed a contract with Capitol. He became a local TV star as the star of the Stones' popular Southern California hometown Jamboree show. Radio Ozark produced 260 15-minute episodes of the Tennessee Ernie Show on transcription discs for national radio syndication. He released almost 50 country singles through the early 50s, several of which have made the charts. Many of his early records, including the Shotgun Boogie and Blackberry Boogie, were exciting, driving, boogie-woogie records, featuring accompaniment by the hometown Jamboree Band, which included Jimmy Bryant on lead guitar and Pioneer pedal steel guitarist Speedy West. I'll Never Be Free, a duet pairing Ford with Capitol record pop singer Kay Starr, became a huge country and pop crossover hit in 1950. A duet with Ella Mae Morse, False Hearted Girl, was a top seller for Capitol Country and Hillbilly Division and has been evaluated as an early tune. Ford eventually ended his KXLA morning show and in the early 50s moved on to hometown Jamboree. He took over from the bandleader, Kay Kaiser, as the host of the TV version for the NBC quiz show College of Musical Knowledge, when it returned briefly in 1954 for a 4-year hiatus. He became a household name in the U.S. largely as a result of his portrayal in the 1954 of the country bumpkin Cousin Ernie on 3 episodes of I Love Lucy. In 1955, Ford recorded The Ballad of Davy Crockett, which reached number 4 on the country music chart with Farewell to the Mountains on side B. Ford scored an unexpected hit on pop charts in the 1955 with Rendering of 16 Tons, a sparsely arranged coal miner's lament. Merle Travis had first recorded it in 1946. It reflected the experiences of the Travis family in the mines at Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. Ford subsequently hosted his own primetime variety program, The Ford Show, which ran on NBC television from October 4, 1956 to June 29, 1961. Ford's last name allowed the show title to carry a unique double entendre spelling the naming rights to the Ford Motor Company. The Ford Theater, an anthology series also sponsored by the company, had run the same time slot on NBC in the preceding 1955 and 56 season. Ford's program was notable for the inclusion of a religious song at the end of every show. Ford insisted on ending with a hymn on his own show despite objections from the network officially and the ad agency representing Ford, who feared it might provoke controversy. Everyone relented after the hymns receiving an overwhelmingly favorable viewer response. The hymn became the most popular segment of the show. In 1956, he released Hymns, his first gospel music album, which remained on the Billboard's top album charts for 277 consecutive weeks. His album, Great Gospel Songs, won an Academy Award in 1964 and was nominated for several others. After the NBC show ended, Ford moved his family to Portola Valley in North California. He also owned a cabin near Grand Jean, Idaho, and the South Fork of the Piute River, where he would regularly retreat. From 1962 to 65, Ford hosted a daytime talk variety show. The Tennessee Ernie Ford Show from KGO-TV in San Francisco broadcast over the ABC television network. In 1968, Ford narrated the Rankin-based Thanksgiving TV special, The Mouse on the Mayflower, for NBC. The mouse narrator seen in the beginning of the special, William the Church Mouse, was a character of Ford, in keeping with the Rankin-Bass tradition. Although he left his own TV show, he went on to other shows like The Dolly Show and The Barbara Mandrell and The Mandrell Sisters in the early 80s. Over the years, Ford was awarded 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for radio, records, and television. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1984 and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1990. In personal life, Ford was married to Betty Heminger from September 18, 1942 until her death. They had 2 sons, Jeffrey Buckner Buck Ford, born in 1950, and Brian Leonard Ford, born in 1952. Out of the public eye, Ford and his wife Betty contended with serious alcohol problems. Betty had the problem since the 1950s, as well as emotional issues that complicated both their lives and the lives of their sons. Though his drinking began to worsen in the 60s, he worked continuously, seeming unaffected by his heavy intake of whiskey. By the 1970s, however, it had begun to take an increasing toll on his health, appearance, and ability to sing, though his problems were not known publicly. After Betty committed suicide in 1989 because of a prescription drug abuse, Ford's liver problems, diagnosed years earlier, became more apparent, but he refused to reduce his drinking despite repeated doctors' warnings. Less than 4 months after Betty's death, Ford married again. On September 28, 1991, he suffered severe liver failure at Dulles Airport. Sadly, Ford died in HCA Reston Hospital Center in Reston, Virginia on October 17, 1991. He was 72 years old. Ford was interred at the Alta Mesa Memorial Park, Palo Alto, California.